Okay, so with the Six Invitational starting in pretty much just 2 weeks from now, I finally have some time aside from classes to put out this preview video. So really what I want to talk about in this is just what we know about the event so far. So I want to talk about the groups, and I want to talk about each of the teams individually as well, because I think that's really important to know about each of the teams before going into the event. And I also want to just give my thoughts on how the group stage will end up at the end. So, yeah. So, these are your groups. It is ordered by global standings. So, that's why it is laid out this way. So, your top four teams, like Unwanted, FaZe, BDS, and W7M, are the number 1 to 4 teams in the global standings, and so on. Like Liquid, Secret DZ, SSG are number 5 to 8, and so on. And then until we get to G2, CAG, Raza, and Oxygen, they're the bottom seeds in each group because they um, went through the qualifiers um, just earlier this month. So now in Group A consists of G2, M80, Liquid, Unwanted, and Team Joel or X Bleed, and same with Unwanted as X Cloud9 Beast Coast. So starting with Unwanted, they're the number 4 seed heading into this tournament from the global standings, and that is mostly because they won the Manchester Major, which gave them a ton of points in the global standings. So slight changes to their roster. They've added Adam and Dream with the loss of Gunner and Diffuser, and then they still have Gunner, or not, Gavini, Hot and Cold and Spirits, and then they added Mint and Nix as their new head coach and analyst. And I definitely am unsure of what to think about this team going into the event. They could either bomb out, or I think they could be quite good, because usually that's what changes due to a team. Usually it's really bad, or it can be really good. Sometimes, even though this was a team that won a major earlier this year, sometimes after things don't work out like it did for them in stage 2, where they didn't qualify to Montreal, um, that change is needed. Um, so yes, they're going into this with changes, and it's really hard to say how they're going to do in this event. I personally, I think they'll do pretty good, because it's not like the players on the team are bad and their support staff is pretty strong. But yeah, definitely a one of the biggest wild card teams in this group, I think. Now for Liquid, they are the 6th seed team in our global standings. They made top 4 in Manchester, but they had a very rough Montreal major. After they started 0-2 or 2-0 in Swiss, they fell to 2-3 and did not qualify to the playoffs. So they still have the same roster. Dusk, Palu, Lagonas, Resets, Maya, including their head coach Hugzord and assistant coach Tice. So the Liquid are, I feel like, when they're on, and when they're off, it's really bad. Like Liquid are either going to be really good, I think, or really bad, and I'm not sure which Liquid we're going to get, because we've seen both of those Liquids this year. So yeah, the Liquid, I don't think they'll get last in this group. I don't think they're that bad, but I could see them definitely like falling to the lower bracket, or the first round of the upper bracket if they have a rough start. But they're also a team, of course, with the potential to be the number 1 seed in the group. So another very difficult team to predict in those terms. And of course, there's always the storyline of will Nesk and Palu win an event together? It's been 6 years. Pretty much, not a lot of people believe in them anymore. Um, so yeah, but I still think it would be cool to see them win an event together one day. And every event where they're still in, I always root for them a little because I think it would just be an amazing story at the end of the day. So yeah. Okay, now we have M80, another team that loves to change one or two players every stage, it seems, as again they are going into this event with plenty of changes. Instead of one player, they've changed three. And technically their coaching spot too, even though Budega has been their head coach before, but we'll get into that in a sec. I want to just quickly talk about why they're here. They made the quarterfinals in Manchester. They made top eight, which gave them enough points, um, pretty much to get them to this tournament because they did not qualify at all to Montreal. So it was pretty much good enough to get them into the 11th spot, which is solid. So now on their roster, they still have Spoit and Kino, but they've swapped out Citizen, Hyper, and Cameraman for Diffuser and Gunner and Packer. So very, very different team. But I think just like all the, I've said this many times about the other M80 teams, it's just one of those teams that's going to be like, it's either going to go really good or really bad. Um, I think. I think this one has the most upside though out of all their teams. To be honest, I thought their last one would. Um, I thought the Cameraman and Citizen editions were really good, but they were just kind of they were good, but they weren't great. So, and then they kind of fell off to like mid status after Manchester. So, and now with Budega back in the head coach spot after he brought a Challenger League for life um, to the Montreal Major in that last LCQ spot. So, yeah, the storyline for M80 is basically will the highest paid roster um, in the world finally play up to their expectations? Because this is certainly one of those teams with expectations, um, because of just because of the players and the names on the team. So yeah. Now for Team Joel, this is X Bleed. They made Manchester and uh, got out at top 11th or 9th to 11th. So I think this Manchester as well. I think they start off 2-0 in groups, and then they also fell to 2 and 3. And then in the Montreal Major, they didn't qualify. They lost to Elevate in the final for the to go to Montreal. So, but they don't have to worry about Elevate being at Six Invitational because they are not here. But they have also made some changes. Um, one of the biggest things that's unfortunate is because apparently their org they were joining with, supposed to join with, ended up being leaked. So the communications basically fell through and they did not end up getting signed anymore, which really sucks. So that's why I try not to really talk about leaks too much on this channel when it comes to rosters or new orgs. So yeah, and now they also swapped out Turdsta for Noodle after Noodle played with them at the APAC finals. They must have really liked Noodle, and Noodle did play well in that event. Now, of course, only APAC teams there. And Noodle is from EU along with Leader, and I think Noodle and Leader have really good chemistry together too. So I do like having them both here on the same team. And of course, I think if you watch any Bleed play, or well now Team Joel play in the past like year or two, I think you should know that Reaps is not to be underestimated, and he's definitely one of those players. If you're like and I'm not. But if you're like an esports better and they have an over under on reaps, you take the over. You take the over. So yeah, and I would say this is actually this could be their most big, in fact, more impactful change than the noodle change is they lost Julio as their head coach and replaced it with Corey. And Corey's also an ex player, and not to say that Corey won't be a bad coach, but I don't think he's ever coached at a tier one team before. But like I said, of course, he's been a player, but it's been a long time since Corey's played. I think his last time he played was with Rogue, um, EU Rogue, and this was years ago. This is before like Rogue had like Spoit in that when they won the Berlin Major. So he was like on the original version of Rogue. Um, and then many other teams before that in the early years of CG Sports. So it's kind of cool to see him back in a coaching spot. Hopefully, this coaching change doesn't result in a lot of team kills for Team Joel. If you know, you know. Um, so yeah, now G2 probably the most well-known siege org of all time. Um, they did make both majors this year by qualifying through the last chance qualifier. And what do you know? They made six Invitational by qualifying through the last chance qualifier. So pretty impressive to win all three last chance qualifiers this year. So, but both majors and did not play well at. Um, and of course, Manchester, they had a different roster, of course. They played a little better at Montreal, but it wasn't enough to really say they did that much better at all because that 15th, 16th is basically one step up from losing in the first round. So yeah, so their roster is still the same for Montreal, but they added cameraman as assistant coach, which I definitely think helps. They definitely look pretty good in the last chance qualifier. Not that they played any like stellar teams in the last chance qualifier, but they were not doing amazing in the closed quals to qualify to the last chance qualifier, where they lost to Mako twice, but they locked in for the LCQ, the final LCQ, and they did not lose a map there, and they look solid. There definitely some role changes. Uno's IGL now. I'm not sure if Alamao is more on a more of an entry role now or still on flex because I feel like Doki is still on entry. I believe, and then I'm not sure if Loira's entry. I believe Loira's entry. Blaz is more on that flex flank watch role or holds cuts. Does a lot of that. And then Alamao is. I also think he's kind of on a flex, but also he'll like I've definitely seen him play entry in the qualifiers as well. So I definitely think this changes that they made from the small sample size um, have looked promising, but it's still hard for me to really say with the teams in their group too. Like, I mean, they could get last in my opinion. They could mom out again. I don't think any of the teams in their group are real slumps. Um, so yeah. So now for Group B, we have FaZe, Furious, Shopify, Rebellion, Cyclops, and Secret. So starting with FaZe, the number 2 rated team in the world, they did well at both majors, but of course their FaZe's expectations of themselves are to win the major. Um, Again, still same roster, been the same roster for like I want to say 2 years now, so no changes there again at all. Um, but yeah, all I'll say is about FaZe is their expectations are to win, and I feel like that's pretty much what everyone should be expecting from FaZe at this point. They have been playing well at tournaments for the past 2 years. They just haven't not been playing well enough to be number one, but they have always been good enough to at minimum make main stage at every event, I believe, for the last 2 years. So I expect them to be top 2 in their group. Um, so yeah. Now for Secret, another team that had a really good year. I think not a not the results Secret won, of course. In both majors, they made it quarterfinals, but lost both quarterfinals. Um, so, but they were very close to eliminating BDS in Montreal. Very close. Unfortunately, it didn't go their way, but I definitely think they could be the most underrated team in this group, in my opinion. But just from what I've seen from this year, I can't like personally say they'll be number one. But I definitely think they could surprise a lot of people at Invite, especially because they have I think they have some consistency now. They're heading into this event with no changes, which I think is always good when you're confident in your roster that they'll perform well. So, and I think of course, the chemistry should be quite good at this point, as these players have been playing well together for some time now. So, yeah, I definitely think Secret could be a surprise team from this group, because I feel like a lot of people with the teams in this group, a lot of people are going to rate Secret on the lower side, but I do think they could come out on top two as well. Pretty much, there's only really one team in here. I feel like that everybody has as number five, and the other four, the order of the other four is like have fun. It's like it's like just throwing darts at the dartboard and get lucky with predictions. I think for this group, now we're on to Furia, the Golden Road team of the 2023-2024 circuit. So, but this year they have not lived up to their standards of winning. They did decent at Manchester. They made quarterfinals but got eliminated by Liquid, to a lot of people's surprise, including mine. And then, to even bigger surprise, they did not even qualify to the Montreal Major. They were not very good in Stage 2 of Brazil League. But it's still the same team, same staff, and everybody knows what they can do, um, and what their ceiling is, which is the number one team in the world. Um, so, again, just another team in this group that's just, like I said before, it's just so hard to rate because they've had so much time off. They could be like absolutely cooking up with new strategies for Invite that other teams have just never seen before and just aren't prepared for. Um, so, and they could also just find a way back to their roots for their winning ways, but that also could not happen. Maybe other teams are just 100% better than them than they are now, and they're just not at their peak anymore. But I still don't think it's been long enough to completely count them out, even with their results in the past year. But currently, I can't rate them as the number one team in this group for sure. And so yeah. Now for Shopify Rebellion and Moist Esports, I guess, but they're all playing under the name Shopify Rebellion now. So, of course, when they were under Sonics, they didn't qualify to the Manchester Major, and then they did qualify to Montreal, though, after a much better stage. After Canadian became available and they added him, and they made top 8 in Montreal, which was a solid result, but they did get absolutely spunked by FaZe in that event. So, no changes to the roster since Montreal. Well, since stage 2. They did add Varys as an assistant coach / analyst to the staff. And that is about it. But I do think they'll be better than they were in Montreal. I would be surprised if they played FaZe again and just got destroyed again. I really hope it doesn't go that way, for their sake, because it's going to look really bad if they do, because all these group stage games are best of threes, I believe. So it'd be very upsetting to see them just absolutely get mollywopped by FaZe again. So if they can beat FaZe, I definitely think it's looking up and up for Shopify. So now for CAG, they did make both majors this year. Didn't do that great at either of them. got eliminated in Swiss and Manchester, and then eliminated in the Phase 1 groups in Montreal. They do have the same roster, at least since Montreal. I can't even remember if this roster was their same roster as the Manchester one. I think it was, but CAG isn't like, a team I religiously pay attention to. But I know it's at least they've been their same roster since Stage 2. And the one thing I can give CAG is they have been for the past, I would say, 6 months, the best team in APAC, where they've had probably some of the better results, and in their own region too. They won the APAC Cup, which is the trophy for the best team in APAC, and then they also won the Last Chance qualifier to be here. So they pretty much cemented themselves as the best team in APAC right now, which is something I didn't really expect this year. Especially, it just seemed that Scars would continue to dominate this CAG roster, but they seem to finally figure something out. And they definitely, in my opinion, and it's CAG, I know, but this is the best CAG I think I've ever seen, like ever. The way they play, it just seems to be a lot more refined, and they're just playing better now. Now, do I think it'll get them out of this group? No, but if they do, props to them, because I don't think it's like completely out of question anymore. If this was 6 months ago, I would be like, yeah, CAG to the airport. But right now, it's like I still expect CAG to be last, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if they squeezed out a win against another one of the teams in this group that may not be performing as well. Because we know in each group that even though there can be multiple world class teams in all your groups, that some of them are just going to be playing better than others in the current day. So yeah. Now for Group C, we have Dark Zero, PSG Talent, BDS, Raza Company, and Falcons. Now, probably in my opinion, in most people's opinions, statistically, it's the weakest group, even with BDS being in here. So I expect this to be an easy group for BDS to farm. Of course, I feel like most people know, if you've been watching Siege for the past little while, they got second at both majors. They did win Esports World Cup, but I'm not really including that tournament here, of course. So definitely, it's been a good year for them, but they had definitely wanted to win at least one of those majors, and they did not get either. But they still walked out with good prize money. But yeah, roster's still the same since the start of the year. And I mean, what are BDS expectations for Six Invitational 2025? Similar to FaZe, to win. And in my opinion, yeah, if BDS don't win here, it's a big disappointment. So yeah. Now for Dark Zero. Made third, fourth Manchester, and that was with Canadian on the team, of course. And then at Montreal, they definitely disappointed after adding Kobe Lax. They did qualify to Montreal. They looked great in NAL that stage, actually. Outside of their one loss to Sonics, they went 7-1. And then, but when they made it to the major, they got bounced pretty early in Swiss, something I didn't expect from them. So they kept the same 5 players since stage 2, but they have changed their staff. They've added Kangaroo Kenny as their, at least he's a stand-in head coach right now, so he's only currently contracted on loan for Six Invitational. So I'm assuming if they do well here, he will stay on the team, and if they don't, well, he'll probably just go back to Into the Breach, I expect. So yeah, definitely Dark Zero are fishing for a better result than Montreal, and I think probably everyone expects that of them too. Oh, and another big narrative for this event is, and this one's kind of been lingering on my mind for a while, is if Bolo will retire after this event because of his familial situation of becoming a father. So congratulations to Bolo, of course. But yeah, if you didn't know that, Bolo is indeed becoming a father. So I feel like a lot of eyes are on Dark Zero to see if he will retire for a second time after this event. Um, if especially if they don't do well, I definitely think the likelihood could be pretty high if they do not do well. So yeah. Now for Falcons. Did not qualify for Manchester, but they did make Montreal, and they very much surprised me personally in Montreal, and I feel like a lot of other people too. I did not expect them to get to the quarterfinals main stage, what they did, and they played quite well. Particularly Robbie, he had like a masterclass tournament. Um, so yeah, and as well as the other players too, they were also played pretty well internationally, especially some of them being their first international tournament ever, being Dove and guards. So yeah, I definitely think this is a sleeper team in this group, similar to what I think about Secret in Group B. This genuinely could be a team that could be the number one team coming out of this group. I do think they have that. There's a small chance of that happening. I think it's very hard, of course, with BDS being here, but I definitely think it's something that could happen. And then I did want to talk about their coaching staff really quickly because I'm not really sure who their actual head coach is, because it's listed as Mad Skills, like on their Wikipedia. But like when I went to the major, and of course if you've just watched the major in general, that Eden was clearly the guy behind the team, like as their coach. So yeah. Now PSG Talon, definitely a team that had a promising start to the year, especially because that they kind of went above expectations, and then after that though it's been very rough for them. They made Manchester, did better than a lot of people thought that they would, by almost making it to quarterfinals, um, and including beating BDS in a best of one, but they still beat them. But after that, they were at Esports World Cup, didn't do well there. I think they got last, pretty sure. And then of course they didn't qualify to Montreal Major, even with two spots to the major, being in the Korean League. They fumbled, and Furex and Damwon Kia ended up qualifying over them. So again, they made um, some one change. They swapped Rumatic back out, who did not last very long on this team. So now they're back to Misa, Ryder, Soldier, Yas, and Gotti, and then the same coaching staff of Fabian and Joker. So again, it's really hard to say um, how PSG Town are going to perform, but because it's been a while since I've seen them play. I think the last time I seen them play was the Montreal Major Last Chance Qualifier. So it's been a while. It's been since October, since I have seen them play at least. So, and I don't really know how they've been performing as of recently at all. So, in my opinion, it's either PSG Talon or the next team we'll get to in this group are going to be the last placing group. The person I believe in this team in the most is Fabian, just because he knows ball, of course, and he has coached a team to a world championship before, of course, a team with players that are much better individually than this roster. But I mean, in terms of Korean players individually, PSG Talent has no excuse to not have the best players from Korea on their team because they have the money to do that. So now on to the last team. Um, so it's Raza Company Academy. And I phrase it like that because this is the XE1 roster. So technically, yes, they're under the name of an Academy roster right now, but they are a team that was playing in Brazil Pro League for this past year. So they're not really a tier 2 level team. Um, and they did make the Manchester Major this year after pretty much surprising everyone and getting there through the last chance qualifiers over other teams like W7M and Black Dragons. Um, and then they went 0-3 in Swiss. Um, kind of how I expected them to do there. I was certainly hating on them in the Manchester Major. I didn't think they were good, and I was proven very right. Um, so their roster currently is Bassetto, Flashery, Live, Paris, and SDK. They look pretty good in Last Chance qualifier because they beat Black Dragons, the team I was expecting to win that Last Chance qualifier. So I still don't think they'll be amazing in terms of teams at this event, and I do think they're the worst team from Brazil here. Um, but there's still not bad players by any means, and I definitely think that it's either this team or PSG Town will be the one of the teams getting eliminated from this group. I would be surprised if it was one of the other three. So now on to Group D, where we have Oxygen, W7M, Virtus Pro, Scars, and SSG. Now for W7M, had a very shaky start to the year, but that's kind of expected when your number one rated team in the world who won the last three events is getting bought out by a larger org, and you have to acquire new players. And they did not qualify to the Manchester Major, but they have had the same roster for this past year. So with Dash, Dots, Dotas, Lobin, and Volps, as well as Norris and Thug on this coaching staff. So as everyone knows, if you've been watching any CG sports, they did win the Montreal Major against BDS in the grand final. Very impressive win from W7M. And I was very happy for them as well. Seeing some of these players win that have been so close so many times, particularly Volps, after after leaving the old WSM roster for Liquid that one year, and then his old team went on to win everything. So it was nice to see them win, and I definitely think W7M have one of the best coaching staff in the world right now. I just absolutely love, and I'm not sure, of course, because I'm not behind the scenes of the team, and I'm sure they do good work. I'm not sure like how their behind the scenes work is, but the energy provided by Norris, I think is really good for the team every round. I think he knows when what the team needs in terms of energy whenever he needs to level with the team, like during a timeout or getting excited after they have a strong performance in a round. So I definitely think vibes are a factor in a winning team, like vibes and in mental. If you don't have that, you will probably never win anything in any sport or esport. So it's not a complete factor, but it certainly is one that I think is important. Now for SSG, they went to both majors this year. Very bad Manchester major where they went 0-3 in Swiss. Montreal major, certainly a better performance after picking up Benjamaster for stage 2. They made to quarterfinals. Ended up losing to W7M, the eventual winners in this quarterfinals, but they gave W7M a run for their money. And of course, they're in the same group with W7M again. They have SSG. I don't think they've ever beat W7M, their old roster, which is now Furia, or this current iteration as well. So W7M have definitely been their kryptonite, and that's one of the big narratives for SSG going to this event is, can they beat W7M? I think if they can get past that hurdle, I think this could be a very strong tournament for them because the players and the coaching staff are really good. I think Call's one of the best coaches in the world. And of course, they have high quality players as well. We've seen amazing things from all these players in the past. Multiple World Championship players on the roster still, and then just top tier gunners, and then Forrest as well. I think a player like Forrest is important to have on the team right now because he's like really good at learning, picking up all those meta and like cheese operators, like playing the shields and all that nonsense. He's really strong at that, and in this current meta, it's very good to have somebody who's good at those operators. So and he's good on other operators in those as well. But as I said, it's always nice to have somebody who will play the cringe shit that will win you rounds just because the operator is just strong. So now for Virtus Pro, I made a mistake here. I still have them labeled as Falcons. That is what I get for not changing the title. God damn it. I gave them the right global standings number though, and I got everything else right. Okay, that's the important part. Okay, Virtus Pro. Ignore the Falcons at the top. Now, Manchester didn't go. Montreal Major, much better, and they didn't get the result they wanted. Of course, they wanted to win, and I think this is also like expectations for them at Invite as well, is expectations to win, as well. So I would be pretty disappointed if they did not do well at LAN, because they almost always do. So, oh man, that was really the only freaking error I made, isn't it? Damn. Well, can't do anything about it. Now, for Scars, they made both majors. They went out in Swiss in both of them at 1 and 3, I believe. So yeah, they went 1 and 3 in both Swiss brackets. The roster is still the same from the start of the year as well, and this is just one of those teams I really have a lot to say about it. They've even kind of just fallen off as a number one team in Japan, which is something I didn't really think would happen. That is, CAG have that spot now, after winning the LCQ and the APAC Cup. So yeah, and CAG also had to beat Scars to be at the APAC Cup. They didn't have to beat Scars in the LCQ because Scars didn't have enough global point standings to qualify to Invite directly, at least. So there's that going for them. But currently, I do think they are looking to probably be the worst team in this group statistically. So now for Oxygen, did not make either major, as they just really struggled to close out games in both stages, where they played pretty decent and all their games were quite close, but they can never close out. But they finally were able to close out in something at least, and where it mattered most is the Six Invitational Last Chance qualifier, which is why they're here. And they have the same roster they've had for pretty much this past year right now, or at least stage 2. When did they pick? I think they got Hat. Actually, they got Hat before the qualifiers for Esports World Cup, I believe, actually. So not this roster for the entire year, but almost the same roster, and it's been this roster for a while. But this team is definitely full of players that can shoot. It's just, yeah, it comes to the question of will they be able to close out their games, and currently this year they haven't been able to do that many times. So they're definitely one of those teams that I think you could also be put in that bottom tier of potentially being eliminated. But I think they are definitely a better team than they were the rest of the year. They look like they are in their best form as of right now. So, and that's always a good thing to be going in a tournament in their best form. But I don't think they'll be a top 3 team in this group still. They could be, but they have a lot to prove still. So, yeah. And now this is how I think each of our groups are going to end up at the end of group stage, or how the playoffs are going to be basically decided. So coming out in first place of Group A, I decided to put M80. But I definitely think any of these teams in here in Group A could actually be the number one team. I think Group A is actually probably the hardest to predict. I don't think there is one team in this group that I think of as like an obvious last place choice. It was pretty hard. I think I was deciding between three teams to put in that last spot, um, being Liquid G2 and Team Joel. But anyways, yeah, back to M80 real quick. So I had them qualifying to the upper bracket quarterfinal, coming out first in this group. I put Unwanted in the upper bracket round one with their choice of matchup. I have Liquid going to the upper bracket round one. I have G2 going to the lower bracket round one, and then I have Team Joel heading to the airport. For Group B, I have FaZe qualifying through the upper bracket or to the upper bracket quarterfinal. And I have Shopify Rebellion going to the upper bracket round one with their choice. I put Furia in the upper bracket round one. But I definitely think either Shopify and Furia and Secret are all teams that could easily be in that number one spot as well. But I'm put Secret in lower bracket round one, and I know I said earlier that they are one of those sleeper teams. And yeah, I am going to decide to take my nap on them, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong because I know in the back of my mind that I have clearly stated that they are a team heading into a group where there are just tons of teams in here that have really high expectations and are looking in really good form heading into this tournament, or teams in this group that have really strong past performances, and it's hard to put them at the bottom of the barrel, even if they haven't been playing as well the past year, which is Furia. And then I have CAG as airport. I feel like this is the easiest airport choice here. So even though again, this is the best form of CAG I've ever seen, and I've been watching CAG play for a long time, because they do make a lot of tournaments. They don't do well at any of them, but they do make them. So yeah, now for Group C, I've got BDS going to the upper bracket quarterfinal. I got Falcons going to the upper bracket round one with choice. I have DZ going to upper bracket round one. Raza Company going to lower bracket round one, and PSG Town eliminated. And then for Group D, I have W7M taking that number one spot in the group, going to the upper bracket quarterfinal. I have Virtus Pro going to the upper bracket round one with choice. I especially think Virtus Pro could be number one or two in this group because all the games are best of threes, which is where Virtus Pro thrive the most in best of threes and best of fives on LAN. So I definitely think that's a strong advantage for them. But I also think SSG could be in these top three spots as well. But right now I just put them in the upper bracket round one because Virtus Pro and W7 have been a better team as of recently than SSG. But SSG definitely have that potential to be the number one or two team in this group as well. Now I have Oxygen in the lower bracket round one, and then Scars to the airport. So yes, I did indeed put every single APAC team at the airport, and I am not mad about it. But yeah, anyways, if you ended up watching this entire thing, I really appreciate it. But I get it if you didn't, and probably just skip to the end for this part or something. So yeah, I ended up deciding I might just wait on a roster change video because I kind of covered all the important roster changes in this video. Because we talked about all our teams. So yeah, if you enjoyed this and you would like to see more, let me know. And if there are other things that I can change besides my idiotic error of having Team Falcons name under Virtus Pro, which I am going to be mad about for probably the next 30 minutes, because I really thought I checked through everything and made sure this was good, but I guess I am blind. So yeah, again, have a good one.